Now on this, let me start plotting so that you may see. I have this kind of a graph. I may decide to plot what we call a Cartesian plane. Now at that point, then I plot another one here. I plot another one. That is what we call a Cartesian plane. Once you've always plotted a Cartesian plane, you must level. So this will be my x-axis, and then at this point I have the y-axis. So the x-axis is always horizontal and the y-axis is always vertical. Now as I level, the central location is always at 0. Now as I move towards my right side, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, then 5. You can stop there. As I go towards this other side, I have -1, -2, and -3. As we go up, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. As I go down, I have -1, -2, and -3. Maybe I can add -4 there. Now I've already plotted my points, and therefore I might be requested to draw some line. Let me just draw a line. Let's say that I've drawn a line that is passing through this point. I may decide and draw a line that is passing through these points here. Just a minute. We decided to draw a line that is passing through that point. Now, I have my line in that case. What should I do with this line? I may be asked to give, let us label it as line 1. I may be requested to maybe get the gradient of line 1, but I'm not able to get the gradient of line 1 before I get the coordinates or 2 coordinates that are at this point along this line. For example, let me level the coordinate at this point. Let me take this point for example. I will check the coordinates at that point, and therefore whenever we are leveling coordinates, we start from the x-axis and then the y-axis. So in this case, on the x-axis, my reading is 4. Then I do a comma. Then on the y-axis again, if you look at the y-axis, my reading again is 4. So it means that at that point, I will have a coordinate of 4, 4. That is x at point 4 from this other section. Then y again at 4 from this other section. Then I can pick any points in the line. Let us make it a little bit longer and pick this point here. I will come and read those coordinates. At this point, I start by reading on the x-axis. Remember, the x is the horizontal one. So on the x-axis, I have -2, on the y-axis, where they meet, where they intersect, I have again -2 in that kind of section. So don't forget that we label our coordinates based on x, then y using a comma. So using these coordinates, I'm able to calculate what we call the gradient of a line. And the gradient of a line is simply the slope, the steepness of that line. So how do I calculate gradient? Gradient is always calculated as change in y over what we call the slope that is there in x. And this class is always interpreted as the second y, because remember I have these 2 coordinates. Let us check those 2 coordinates. My first coordinate is this one here, -2, -2, sorry. This is my point, let's say that point A. Then my point B along that line will be 4, 4. Now once I have this, I have 2 coordinates, and it is not possible for me to calculate the slope or the steepness of this line with 1 coordinate. So I must have 2 points that are in this line, along that line. Now I have 4, 4, and I have -2, -2. So this is my first coordinate, and this is my second coordinate. And then what I will say, coordinates are arranged in the form of x, y, and this one again in the form of x, y. Now if you look at this, we are saying that gradient is calculated as change in y over change in x. That is always interpreted as the second y minus the first y over the second x minus the second minus the first x. That is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That means therefore that if I have that kind of a line, then this is what will happen. In my calculations, this is my y, but it falls on the second coordinate. It falls on the second coordinate, so this will be my y2. So I'll say therefore gradient is the gradient of that line will be my y on the second coordinate is 4 minus my y on the first coordinate. My y on the first coordinate is negative 2. Don't forget to take it with the sign that is there. This sign is for the formula, but this sign is the sign with this. Remember, we are working at a coordinate of negative 2 here. And then over the first x, the second x, sorry, which is this one, x on 2, on coordinate 2, which is 4, minus again x on what? X on this other coordinate. X on this other first coordinate, which is x1, that will be minus 2. And therefore, this cannot be solved this way because I have a minus and a minus, a minus and a minus. Now, two similar signs always gives me a positive, and therefore I'll say, therefore my gradient will be 4 plus 2 minus and a minus gives me a plus over 4 plus minus and a minus gives me a plus 2, and therefore in that case I will have 6 over 6. So 6 over 6, 6 will go there once, and 1 over 1, therefore our gradient will be equal to 1. Therefore, class, it means that this line has got a gradient of 1. So gradient is always just calculated as change in y over change in x. So you start with the second y minus the first y over x2 minus x1. And it is very important for you to label this coordinate so that you are able to know whatever you are working with. So our gradient in this case is 1. Thank you very much for today's class, and have a nice day.